You're watching a brand new edition of Procurement Shorts, your one-stop shop to news from around the world on supply chain and procurement. Here's what's making headlines today. Global rice prices are set to rise again as India has imposed curbs on the export of white and brown rice, while banning exports of its widely traded broken rice. The move is disastrous from a procurement and food security standpoint, as the country accounts for a whopping 40% of global rice exports that total to 22 million metric tons per year. This also means countries like Thailand and Vietnam, which account for 14% of global rice exports, are cooperating to hike prices of their crop thanks to the supply crunch. The government's move will boost global prices, said a statement from India's Rice Exporters Association, which added that global export prices of white rice may now hit $400 per ton, from just about $350 today. The move is expected to impact European buyers the most. In 2020, European imports of brown rice jumped nearly 6% to stand at 1.1 million tons, with markets like Belgium, the Netherlands, Portugal, Spain, France, Italy, and Poland accounting for 2/3 of procurement volumes. Last year, European rice imports jumped 10% to 3.5 million tons. Incidentally, rice becomes the third agricultural commodity that India has restricted after wheat and sugar. While the first two crops saw restrictions amid global shortage thanks to the war in Ukraine, export restrictions on rice come as India's planting has shrunk 5.6% this year. And that's largely because the country's monsoonal rainfall has been 25% lower in some key rice-growing states in the north. Supply chain bottlenecks and port congestion in and around the United States have applied pressure on warehousing vacancies across the country. Real estate services firm CBRE has reported that vacancies in the U.S. are at a historic low of 2.9% when compared to 7.7% a decade ago. In the trade-heavy Pacific Southwest region, accounting for 40% of imports, vacancies are scraping the bottom at just about 0.5%. The spillover effect has impacted inventory along the East Coast too, as shippers begin moving containers from the West Coast to the Northeast regions to capitalize on availability. That, coupled with the already existing port congestion along the East Coast, is seeing an 8% spike in warehousing costs here. The supply crunch has come to be on account of what the industry is calling the just-in-case ordering strategy, where buyers are stockpiling goods as a contingency measure against supply chain uncertainties. However, quickly evaporating warehousing space means this approach may not be sustainable as a means to counter the 6 to 9 month-long procurement lead times that exist today. The good news, though, is that a logistics and warehousing giant like Maersk is reporting about 20 million square feet of vacant space. However, the fact remains that additional warehousing capacity isn't being constructed in pace with immediate requirements. So, until buyers go back to the just-in-time approach of getting them off the shelf, vacancies will stay low. But with the supply chain logjam likely here to stay, that approach seems far-fetched at best. Europe-bound food grains, including wheat, could see prices rise again, as Russian President Vladimir Putin has called for revisions to the UN-brokered Black Sea export corridor for Ukrainian grain. In late July, the UN successfully secured the peaceful transit of food grains from Ukraine through the Black Sea amid the continued Russian offensive. This was seen as a move to ease fears of a famine in Africa, thanks to the Russian sea blockade. However, Russia has said it may not continue supporting the corridor since intended recipients in Africa haven't received enough grain. Here's a look at what's made it through so far. 842,000 metric tons of grains have been shipped to Europe that could brace for price hikes should the corridor shut. 600,000 tons of food grains have been shipped to Asia and the Middle East, while only about 400,000 tons have gone to Africa, and that is what Russia's problem is. While nearly 2/3 of these food grains were corn, nearly 22% comprise Ukrainian wheat, a statistic that saw global wheat prices rise over 2% over fears of the Russian threat to not abide by the tenets of the corridor. Incidentally, the move comes even as Russia's wheat harvest has hit record levels, registering a whopping 100 metric tons, with 46% of its produce earmarked for exports. Well, that's about all the time we have, but you get to keep pace with procurement news and updates on BureauLive.ai. So until we meet again, it's goodbye from us!